Hi everyone. Before we jump into the video today, I just wanted to quickly let you know that fanfooty made it very, very easy for someone to go on the website and impersonate someone else, such as Monty, the site owner. The upshot of this, which was demonstrated over the weekend by the messages you can see on screen, is that they were easily able to access emails and passwords of any user on the platform, as the passwords were stored in plain text, which, as far as I understand, is not best practice. If you use the same email and password on fanfooty as elsewhere, there is a good chance you've been compromised, and you should heavily consider changing your details. In fact, definitely change your details on those other sites where you use the same email and password combinations. Thankfully, the person who did discover this is not a bad person, isn't trying to scam you, and instead of using those details for personal gain, reported the exploit to Monty, which is what you can see here, although he must, well, I assume it's a he, did it with a fair bit of flair, which, yeah, I don't know if that was required, but yeah, I've removed kind of the full details or explanation of what they did because obviously we don't want the wrong people to stumble across this exploit, find it, and use it between now and when hopefully a fix is implemented by Monty this week. But I did think it was really important, given how much of the Supercoach community relies on fanfooty as a source of scoring over the weekend. It's just so important that if you have an account, you're aware of this and that you change those email and password details immediately. I would also, heavily consider having an account on the website in the future, just because of the lapse security we've seen so far. Welcome back to another Supercoach video with me, JD. You're joining me for the round 22 score review, where we have posted just shy of 2,300. Unfortunately, seeing us slide another 66 ranks and putting us just outside the top 500, which is not great. But look, it was a wild week. What can I say? There was a lot that went on this week that was hard. You lost 5 out of 7 league. Oh, whatever. League's dead to me now. I lost my cash league by under 20 points, and even I had more unique outs than they did. What are you meant to do? This is the part that's always frustrating about league. You have the best team all year, and then late outs and injuries, and being a terrible Supercoach, not having any trades, and it costs you the whole thing. So, yeah, I mean, lots to discuss this week. I mean, firstly, we've got to start with backline carnage, right? We had Lloyd, May, Mills, Stewart, Hearn, I think, as premium options. I mean, Hearn's not as common as the other ones. All named out or laid outs for different reasons. Then you had Highmore, who was out, and you had Briggs out too. So who got dropped? There's just so many backline options, and anyone that was able to either avoid them or have a trade plus cover ended up really far ahead this week. I didn't. I had to cop a 0, which was unfortunate. And then Bianco's cover was pretty terrible. I think, not too many. Oh, I guess if you had Durham for Essendon, he put up a good score, right? And he's a defender mid eligible. What did he do? 93. Oh, solid score. So yeah, if you had him, that's great. But yeah, Bianco 40 is better than nothing, but it still wasn't great. So yeah, just a really hard week for defense. I guess a lot of people are in the same boat, so I can't really use it as an excuse for why I didn't do well. I don't want Bianco. But yeah, that's tough. And from the sound of things with Stewart, he was in a moon boot. They're getting scans. The injury itself was oddly strange. They said it was, just taking off to start running during a normal training drill, and it went. And it's just unlucky. So this is really unfortunate. It sounds like we probably won't have to do it next week. So look, maybe Bianco is going to be replacing him anyway. That's unfortunate. Lloyd had awareness or a strain or something, but he should be back next week from all reports. Mills should be back, I think, as well. May, I actually didn't see what Mays was for, but I'm assuming he's back. It's just a laid out. Yeah, I don't know. This is really tough. A lot of people are going to be doing it really badly, and I guess the overarching lesson is hold as gold. I think this year more so than any other year for me, I went quite aggressive pursuing overall with my trades. Usually, so being a league player for so long, I've held trades so hard for the back end of the year, and I'm always storming home at this time of the year. Just don't have those trades this year, and that's some interesting lessons. Finding that balance between using your trades and being aggressive and not is massive. And you also, it's not just rank 500 this matters. You see the people in the top 2, 3, 4, 5 teams at the moment. The ones that have done really well versus the ones that haven't through this final stretch are those that have had trades to take advantage of some of these situations. Being able to get there with a couple of extra trades up sleeves is super underrated and something I have to keep top of mind next year. Who else did I talk about? Oh, Ridley looked really good. He took a few crazy marks today, but that was a really easy win for Essendon. So no surprise there. Who else we have? Laird was good in a close game, and Short posted one of those good scores, which is great. Whitfield has surprisingly underperformed, and I tried to avoid holding off like who we're going to start next year and who we're going to start next year in these types of videos, but Whitfield is interesting because given his GWS and injury history, I'd say no, but 95 was really underpriced for him. So yeah, he's going to be hard to step away from next year, especially if he has a full preseason. But we have seen like having players that don't have injury history, it's just so important. In the midfield, Steele, man, he dropped the ball big time. He had 96 at halftime, I want to say. But like it was basically 100. They destroyed the first half of the game and then put 3 or 4 points together for the second half. Cannot believe it. And I'm sure there's people out there that would have had him as vice captain. It's just so strange that that's how it played out. Because if you just look, 100's not a bad score, but when you see the half splits, it's shocking. He rocked up for one half. He actually got a fair few touches in the second half as well, but yeah, I think scaling went against him pretty hard there and just didn't have as good a half. McRae was good. Again, he beat out Bont, and we got to, I think, just after the buys or just around the buys, and Bont had edged ahead of McRae for top average for the year, and McRae taken that personally. I know he cares deeply about his Supercoach ranking and how much Supercoaches love him, and it's good to see he's put it together. So at the moment, he's my every week vice captain option over Bont and Pelly, and he definitely be my captain option just because the consistent 130s is so valuable, and it meant that Oliver, who would have been my captain option, I didn't take. If I had to go on Bond vice captain, I would have rolled the dice on Oliver, which would have been an even bigger loss. So, yeah, this is very nice from McRae. What else is it talk about? Walsh 115 in a loss, and like a really bad loss. Like, ouch, being a Carlton supporter hurts. One of the things we've always said about Walsh, like 2 big positives for why we liked him, which is scores well on losses, which we thought Carlton would have a lot of, and his endurance means he's going to round out the year well. So seeing a 115 from him in a split smashing does not surprise me. Very good Supercoach option, and one that people will definitely consider next year given his age profile and durability like that. Oliver, by the way, I'm not going to talk about him too much, but like just learn to kick straight. You could have easily put a couple of goals on and had a nice 110. Merritt was very good for Essendon. Just love his kicking. It's just one of those games where in an absolute smashing, he isn't one of those players that really put the sword to them like you see some of the others do. So it's one of those things that like stops Merritt from having like the 120 plus upside, is that he doesn't really seem to pile on in games where Essendon dominate. Yeah, he seems to score best in like close games. So yeah, tough. Brayshaw, man, that suspension. Look, don't get me wrong. Eye gouging is an absolute dog act, and if someone is gouging eyes, it shouldn't be a week. It should be multiple weeks. But I don't know how from the footage they had, you could possibly determine that he was trying to, or even successfully gouged his eye. All you do is see a hand go underneath, much like you would if they were going for a ball or for anything else. And yeah, he comes up holding his face. Like, Bontempelli was good, but yeah, not as good as McRae. And then Neil is still struggling, just struggling hard. And Lyons and Zorko carried them, which was really hard because my cash league opponent did have both of those, and I had none. So that was sad. And then you can't really see it because of my big head. What's happened? The camera's gone back to the version of me that's way too big. Can we adjust this on the fly? Yeah, let's get smaller. So Bramble absolutely clutched, but it's just funny that Newcomb came in this week and outscored him anyway. I'm pretty sure actually if I had Newcomb as my E, I would have won my cash league. But anyway, that's yep, we won't talk about that. So this these are like both great cover. Rachel was back for me this week, and I don't think anyone else misses. So that should be good. I mean, maybe someone gets rested because we're a week out from finals, but I don't know who that would be. And then rucks have been somewhat disappointing. I mean, really, the only ruck that we actually should have wanted was John Darcy. There he is, big man himself. What did he put together? A 150? I think he's had one score under 100 since round 16, and he must be still averaging like 130, 140. He's been by far the number one ruck the back half of the year, and one that will be seriously looking at starting next year. And then forward line, look, the one I'll start with, the one I don't have, just Hawkins. I reckon he gets at least a week for that tackle, which means I don't think he's playing next week. And from the Cats' perspective, right, they just want to make sure he's available for the first week of finals. So I think they'll be happy to accept a 1 weeker, really. They'll probably try and fight it anyway, but as long as it's not 2, I think they'll be pleased. All right, well, let's just call it. I mean, Hall has been the trade-in of the year. He has just been phenomenal. 400k, massive average in the forward line. We were desperately calling out for it. Hasn't missed a game since then. He's been huge, absolutely huge. Seabull, also great, but down game today. It's still funny, like they, kind of talk about how they average like 110, 115 each week. On a down week, still like a 90 average between the two of them, or 95 average, like that. Danger back to his best, really pulled one out of the bag, so that's a huge score. I think a lot of people have him though. I think he's pretty well owned, so like not a huge pod for, but anyway, that's we're trading him for those scores. Dale, this is, by the way, pretty funny week that Dale and Hind have both been like really upset about the last couple of weeks. Managed a 108 and a 133. Hind was really good today. He was everywhere. He was intercepting. He was good offensively, kicked a goal. And Dale had a pretty solid game. I actually didn't notice him that much. I was kind of surprised that he had a 110, but he was good for the parts I noticed him. Then even Bolton just, an 80. This is not great. It's very copium to be like, 80 from Bolton, but given how he's been scoring, this is not too bad. So, I guess going into the final week, what have we got? Well, obviously some big games, like Collingwood against Essendon's pretty huge. And I reckon that game is going to be scheduled for Sunday because they're going to want to build suspense over the weekend with, all these teams that could be playing finals if Essendon lose to Collingwood. And I'm sure Collingwood will bring their best. They'll want to disrupt that big time, finish the year on a high, send Harvey off on a high as well. So, and especially bounce back after this week. So, yeah, I think Essendon need to watch out. That'll be the Sunday game, which means, you could always put Merritt as a captain option if you want to. Okay, so captain, vice-captain options. We've got Adelaide against North, so you could look at Laird in that if you really wanted to. Brisbane against West Coast, I'd probably avoid everyone. I like picking players against West Coast just because I don't rate them. Their mids are still underdone and they haven't been defensively good enough. And it's at the Gabba, it's not at West Coast. So I wouldn't be doing Neil, his form's been terrible. Maybe you consider Lions or Zorko as a vice captain. I wouldn't captain either just because they're not consistent enough. But yeah, if that's an early game, maybe you could consider those. Carlton against GWS, like maybe Walsh is desperate, but don't love that matchup. Essendon Collingwood, we talked about. Geelong Melbourne. This is interesting. It reminds me of, I guess, the Bulldogs Melbourne matchup from, was it 2 weeks ago? And I didn't really want to take premium on either side because I wasn't sure who was going to get on top and which premium would score well as a result. And it turned out if you just picked like either McRae or Oliver from that game, you were fine. I think even Gorn and did well, Bront was fine. So maybe this is actually a really good one, and you do want someone like an Oliver who'll stand up in that game. Oh, this is bad. I should already know if they're playing for top 4 or not. Oh, I haven't looked at the ladder. Yeah, because they're playing for top 4 and there's a lot on the line, or like a home final, which they probably will be, right? So they're going to actually be trying, which makes me think that like Oliver could be a good option this week. Richmond Hawks wouldn't touch anyone there. Like, oh, maybe you could touch Mitchell. Like, Mitchell wouldn't be a bad option. St Kilda Freo, maybe Steele. And then Swans, Gold Coast, I think Took Miller is going to be a great option as always. And then finally you've got Dogs Port, which, yeah, I don't really want to touch anyone there. This is interesting this week, actually, because there's no standout options. Oh, maybe Hall against the Crows. That could be interesting. Into McRae. We'll leave it like that. I'm sure I'm going to need to do more research. And then I guess just finally, for those that are playing league finals, one thing I like to do is try and get the vice captain captain advantage, which is I like it. I really like it when your vice captain is their captain. It gives you much more strategic flexibility, especially if you're behind or ahead. Either way, it really helps give you some strategic advantage, because if you're ahead on scores, you can then decide to take even like a worse vice captain option if it just means like guaranteeing or locking up your win. But similarly, if you're behind, you can then radically shift your captain option to try and give yourself a point of difference. So that's going to be my one golden tip for the week. Try and get the vice captain advantage by having your vice on their captain and then having a captain option elsewhere. But yeah, that's really all there is this week. Once again, just to reiterate, if you do have a FanFooty account, you should be changing your email and password on all other services, websites, accounts, whatever it may be, where you use that same combo, because there's a good chance of being compromised. Otherwise, yeah, let me know what happened with you this week, where you guys are at, and I will see you next week for the last video of the Supercoach year.